Hi, I'm Lydia Gilman, host of the Stepping Into Purpose podcast, and I am obsessed with helping people overcome fear and resistance and step into their power and shine their light. We are all here for a big reason, and when we follow that call to live our most authentic life, we are not only fulfilling our own highest purpose, but inspiring others to do the same. This is what will truly change the world for the better. Every week, I'll drop a new episode sharing stories and conversations I've had with inspiring people who have followed their calling and are living the life their soul intended. Welcome to the Stepping Into Purpose podcast. Hi, I'm Lydia Gilman, and welcome to the Stepping Into Purpose podcast. Today's episode is part one of a conversation I had with Darci Hawxhurst, the creator of the Vibrant Women Coaching Program, helping women recover and thrive after burnout. In today's episode, Darci shares her amazing story of becoming a single mother as a young college student to a baby daughter who went on to have serious health issues. Darci's strength and determination to advocate for her daughter and rehabilitate her brain injury makes her nothing less than a hero to me, and she is now on a mission to educate others about the life-changing tools which led to her once severely disabled daughter to become a fully independent college student today. Darci is writing a book about her journey and also has a coaching program helping women recover from burnout and become the healthy, vital woman they are born to be. Darci is a true inspiration, and please enjoy part one of her story today. Welcome, Darci. I'm so excited to have you on the Stepping Into Purpose podcast. It's lovely to have you here.
Thank you, Lydia. It's good to be with you.
Well, we connected about a week ago or something, and I heard a bit more about your story, and it's amazing, and it really gave me goosebumps. You've got such a beautiful story. So I'm so excited to share it with our listeners. And do you want to start with just telling us where you're at now? Because I know you're writing an amazing book and you've got this whole business, it has sort of sprung out of your story, which is exactly what it's about, to, really step into your purpose. You don't know what's going to happen in life, but that's what your thing is,
It's so true. So people who meet me today, so I say, hi, I'm Darci. I'm the creator of the Vibrant Woman program. And, of course that makes sense. Here I am thriving and healthy and full of all this energy and with all of this information to help people understand really the root causes of metabolic disease and burnout, how to avoid them or how to heal from them. That's what I did. But yeah, and I've got this wonderful, beautiful, capable, healthy daughter. She's a successful independent college student. And, we both love teaching people about the power of the body and the brain to heal. I'm writing this wonderful memoir about our story. And that's where, it's a little funny because I'm here in this place I call thriving, teaching other people how to trust the wisdom of their body, how to follow their intuition, how so much more than what we're told in the mainstream educational and medical systems is truly possible for us as human beings, all human beings. And I say that because I've actually not always been here, right? My journey started a lot farther down that path in a place of struggle, in a place of illness. And so, yeah, to have journeyed all the way back from my own rock bottom burnout. And my daughter's story is a little more serious, to find myself in this place that I call thriving, where I have these tools, I could not share them. Right.
Yes.
I tried to, we talked about this. I tried to run and hide just a little bit. I thought, well, and I'll tell you, I definitely want to share this story with your audience, but I thought after we had overcome all of this, I just want to overcome it all. I just want to go live a normal, healthy life. I just kind of want a regular life back. And it turns out That's not at all what life wanted from us, right?
No, no.
Well,
Yeah, you just want to rest. It's like, okay, we've come through all this. Please, can I just have a rest? But it's like, yeah, this is your thing to share and help others. That's right. And you can't not do it, can you? I mean, I think it would be way harder as a conscious, human being to not follow that calling. It's too hard for us because you're not following the flow and what life has for you.
well, I tried. I have to tell you, I did try. I tried. Well, and part of it was just trying on other things. I ended up with all of this information and certifications, and I was going to be a teacher. And so I did sort of step into it. I'll say it like this. I followed the path as it lit up, one step at a time. But when I tried to take the fork in the road that took me toward what I thought was just a normal, sensible, calm life, it didn't fit. I would try to get a job and I just couldn't get the job, even though I was perfectly qualified or overqualified. Or I would get the job and I would wake up to go to work and everything in my body just said no. Yeah. Or I'd be awake in the middle of the night, with this book writing itself through my thoughts and my dreams. And I thought, I get it. Okay, I get it. This is what I have to do. So yeah, here to tell this story. And I'm just thankful to folks like you who will let me have a little time with their audience. The reason I have to do this, Lydia, is because I once was this young single mom with a daughter I almost lost in the middle of the night to a medical emergency. And, I remember feeling so alone and so overwhelmed, so invisible, really, and hopeless. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that there were solutions, there were answers. And I just feel like all the other moms out there who are where I once was, this is my love letter to them, and maybe to myself, to that previous version of me who wasn't sure if any of this was possible. And now there's a version of me living it. And that's really the message that I want to convey to people. Never give up hope and keep in touch with your intuition, because those no's, when that resonated through my body, not this, not this, not this. I didn't know what the yes was yet, but that's kind of how life just gently nudges us in the right direction, right?
Yeah. Because if you knew the whole book at the beginning, it would scare you and you'd run and hide in the closet and go, no, I can't bear this. But I loved how you put it, that you just followed the steps as they lit up, one step at a time. Or you put it beautifully. And that's so true, isn't it? It's just about following those nudges as they light up. You just go one step at a time, one step at a time. And that's how you get brought into the right direction. So I just love that. And that you could feel it, couldn't you? Why am I not getting these jobs? Why does it not feel right? The universe guides us, but you have to have your eyes open and your heart open to feel it and to go with that flow. I mean, so many people do let their head override those nudges and just push forward with determination. And we do need determination, but you need a gentle, feeling it through. So I loved that you did that. And you can't not share the story. This is far more important. I mean, teaching is very important, but this, you're unique. You have this real offering for people, which is so important. So I love it. Yeah.
It's beautiful what you said there. And I think it speaks to something that's just, I've learned to embrace about myself, something that's very true about me. The whole point of having this story to even tell is because I could not settle for the situation that we found ourselves in. And I couldn't let my rational mind lead me to just accept the mundane rational solutions. I was just never able to do that. So it's funny you say that. I don't know why I thought I would be able to do it now. I wasn't able to do it before. It's why we have this whole story to tell, because I was not able to accept the limitations, the disability labels, all the things they said my daughter would never be able to do. I just couldn't accept it. So
it's interesting because people could accept it and that'd be their reality. I mean, we have so much power within ourselves to change the reality. And, it could have been an either or if you had have just been willing to settle I think it is a choose your own adventure, isn't it? I mean, that could have been your reality, but it was something in you which chose to overcome the odds and to have this whole calling. So it's very special. And you followed the call way back then, so you can't give it up now because, you did the hard part. But, a lot of people would just accept this is the way it is. So you're very special for choosing that other path. And look at your daughter. I mean, how grateful must she be that she chose you as a mother who would advocate for her, and she has a normal, beautiful, fulfilling life. It's really amazing.
Well, the truth is you should have asked her yesterday morning if she was really glad that she chose me for a mother. I think that tends to come and go, honestly. But yeah, I'm really, to be honest with you, I'm not sure who gave who the real gift here.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Because it's always a win-win, isn't it? It's always a win-win. And our children are our biggest teachers. But what a huge thing you did. I mean, it's always a challenge having children, but that is super, super next level to go through all of that, let alone that medical emergency in the middle of the night you were young, weren't you? A college student, young single mother. I mean, that's huge in itself. It's just all these things your soul said yes to is incredible.
Yeah. So I was a young single mom. And this is so funny because I was still in college, and when I found out I was pregnant for my daughter, Haley, and actually that was the first of only a few clairaudient experiences that I've had in my life. And so I knew something very powerful was happening and was coming through into my life. I woke up in the morning to the sound of singing. It was coming from all around me, but it was coming from within me. And and the voices said, "She's here." And I thought, she who? What the hell? And, a few weeks later, and my period was late, and I went to the pharmacy and I bought, this is where I was in my life at the time. I was subsisting on pretzels out of a box, Diet Coke out of a can, and Camel Lights. So I went to the pharmacy and I literally bought a pack of cigarettes and a pregnancy test. And it was so tacky, but I argued with myself. I was like, well, if it turns out I'm pregnant, that I can't smoke those. And so I smoked about half of them before I decided to do the test. Right. So I take the pregnancy test and we get 2 pink lines, and I'm like, okay, I understand. And I gave the rest of the pack of cigarettes to my neighbor. I slipped them under her door in the middle of the night. And from there on, my life was changed. And this is how little I knew about how little I knew. I was excited. I thought, oh, this is cool. I'll just be a single mom. Like, this will be great. And, I remember shopping and learning like how to figure out what size baby onesies and diapers and things. And, my family was very supportive. And so I was going to take some time off of school and just, get this part of my life under control. And Haley was only 12 days old when in the middle of the night, she was fussy, and we finally took her temperature. It was 104, almost. So we went racing off to the emergency room where we bypassed admissions. It's all really a blur because it was just this thing that was suddenly happening to us. They whisked her out of my arms. She came back a few minutes later, stripped down in an incubator full of tubes and wires coming out of everywhere. And the spinal tap results take a while, but they were acting as if that was going to come back positive. They assumed this was spinal meningitis. And it turns out that was the case. She contracted, we had a long, difficult labor and delivery. And so Haley was in my birth canal for quite a long time. And this was before the days that they did standard testing for group B strep. So she contracted the bacteria in my birth canal. And, by a couple of weeks later, she had this rampant infection running through the lining of her brain.
Wow.
Yeah. So there I was I look back and I remember that moment where I was in the hospital in like a milk stained pajama top, completely sleep deprived, kind of a little bit irritable, thinking, okay, like when do I get to go home? Like, I'm going to need a nap, and not really understanding the precipice that we were teetering on, because it was later that night that she began having such persistent long seizures. They were called status epilepticus, these seizures that would not stop even despite the medications. And they were using as much medication as was humanly known to be safe for a baby of that size. And they couldn't get them to stop. So Haley was transferred to a children's hospital. But it was then that I realized, wow, this is really serious and she's in grave danger. Everybody knows now this may not end well. I mean, this might end here. They wouldn't let me ride in the ambulance with her when they made the transfer. There wasn't room for anyone but her and the medical team. And they did not make me any promises that when I got there. Yeah. So,
Oh, gosh.
So
did you remember that moment of that conception where the singing and had you reflected on that and made the connection at that stage?
Well, in that moment, no, and even though when I write about this in my memoir, there clearly was a lot of momentum here and none of it was comfortable. And yet those are like the waves on the surface. And underneath it all was just, I didn't have any way to articulate it at the time, but I will say there was a still presence running through me, even through all of this, that was a very sturdy knowing. And I didn't really know what to make of it or what to do about it. But I will say that buoyed me and carried me through and allowed me to really do what I had to do, which was, to sit in a chair under fluorescent lights in a hospital all night and watch over this baby. I remembered looking in her eyes the moment she was born. And Lydia, I swear she looked ancient to me. There was just an ancient, beautiful, knowing wisdom when she looked me in the eyes that first time. And it's all, I remember thinking, wow, she's really here for something.
Wow.
I had no idea that within about the first, and about a week later, she was going to start showing it. And Haley doesn't talk much about this and she doesn't seem to really have any, conscious recollection of it. But as I watched her then grow up, because she made it through that night, there was always this awe in me that I know I am really not the wise one here. She really came for something, and it has just unfolded that way that makes me understand what that look meant.
Yeah.
That look was, I'm going to be all right, and you need to buckle in, So
it just gives me goosebumps, and it's really like, she was here up for the mission. She chose you. Let's do this. But it's such a trust. It's such a trust that she chose you. I guess because it was you, there wasn't any option but not to take anything as an answer, but she is going to be fine, and I'm going to advocate for her, and I'm going to not accept no for an answer. But the trust and that connection between your souls, that choice, that she chose you, it's a huge thing to me. It really gives me goosebumps, and it's amazing because you were up for it and you did well by her, but so many people may not have. And then what would her life have looked like,
Yeah, we'll never know. I mean, I honestly have no idea. People ask me all the time, like, how did you do it? Or I get compliments a lot because she did make it through that night in the hospital and the next, 14 nights and the 3 weeks of antibiotics. And I stayed there with her. And, for several of those early days, I was making the long march down they kept it in a janitor's closet. If you would believe it, I had to walk down these long corridors into the bowels of the hospital in this musty old closet where they kept the only breast pump. And I would have to pump my breast milk because that was my that was like my living faith, right? Breast milk is on a supply and demand. And number one, I was miserable, uncomfortable for not having nursed, turned into a day, 2 days. It was like, oh no. So I had to release the milk. But the point was, that was my act of faith that I intended for her to need that. And I was going to need to have it for her. So they actually let me put it in a refrigerator out of her room in the NICU. And as soon as she was well enough to begin to tube feed and they wanted to use some formula, I asked them to use my breast milk. So they fed her through a tube in her nose. And day by day, you know, she became a little bit more conscious. They ran tests and showed me maps of the brain and all the places that her brain was not doing what it should do, and where all the bleeding had been. And so they finally did send us home with this tiny little baby. I didn't even know how to sleep in a dark room, but they said, here, take her home and raise her like a normal child, even though she came with a long list of disability labels now and a huge bottle of phenobarbital that I had to give her twice a day, every day during this critical developmental years of her life. So that's what it really was. It was just me bumping up against the low expectations, by the way, of the mainstream medical system, what they expected, and that their options were really, I came to realize this is all about masking the symptoms. Nobody here is talking about treating the root cause, which we knew was an injury to her brain. Yeah. So by the time she was 4, she was well behind her peers, getting worse, not better, on 4 different medications now, still having seizures. You know, she had crossed eyes and crossed legs, and I was afraid to let her go up and down stairs by herself, not to mention she was just wild and frustrated. And, you know, and I see that now. I look back and she drove me crazy in those days. I did not know what to do, but that was her spirit, her vibrancy, trying to come through the crack of least resistance, you know? Yeah. So when we finally found this program that treated the root cause, that taught me about the brain, that helped me to basically harness what we would call now neuroplasticity, that it's all doable. We can heal the brain. In fact, it's trying to heal itself if we remove so many of the things we do in our modern world that are simply obstacles to that. And I learned about nutrition. I learned those medications were another obstacle, and that they had terrible debilitating side effects. And so I was able to just piece by piece by piece, day by day, learn and put Haley through this program of rehabilitation that gave her the chance to shine in the ways she was meant to manifest what I saw in her eyes that first day. You know, she had to break through a lot to be able to be that on the outside, I guess. But yeah, she's now an independent college student, and she's running her own business, and she's wanting to revolutionize the sick care industry for Alzheimer's patients, because she says, Mom, that's just brain injury, and we know what to do about that. I've done it.
It's amazing. And how old is she now?
She's 29. And that's the thing, when people say, oh, how old is she? Oh, she's older in college. Well, here's the thing about that. We have these systems that say that if you can't do a certain thing by a certain age, then it will never happen. And that at 8-year-olds, all the 8-year-olds should be doing this. And then all the 16-year-olds should be doing this. And Haley's journey, you know, she couldn't read till she was 10.
Yeah.
So she had some catching up to do. And it took some time. But we never let that limit our imagination or our desire. Her dream for where she wanted to be. She wanted to go to college. Yeah. So we were going to take however long it took for her to be able to do that and to do it independently.
Yeah.
You know?
It's amazing.
At the end of the day, when you're in a college classroom, does it really matter if you're 16 or 26 or 36? Like, once you make it into the adult world, the point is we're all just living for the dreams, the manifestations, the things we want to do next. And I know sometimes she actually gets a little bit like, I'm kind of old to be doing this. And we just say, you know what, you are where you are. And by the way, I'm ageless. So
I think it's great. She's going a little bit older as well. And she can really appreciate it and value it in that way. And I'm sure she does.
Yes, she does. And she can prioritize it in her life. Like, it fits into her life in a way that's very reasonable and healthy. And from my perspective, totally different than the way I did college, right? I mean, I was in college when I had her. Really, to be honest, I had no sense of purpose. Yeah. I knew I was smart and I knew I would do something, but I really did not have a calling, which is very different, because Haley just, like I said, she came with this calling, right?
She was obviously here for a very different reason and a big journey, a big job, you know, and I'm sure she's here to go on and really change the world. So it's amazing, as have you, I mean, by doing this. And so she's 29. So, I mean, you like to think that times have changed a little bit, or especially with the breast pump being hidden down in the janitor's closet. I mean, isn't that just a tragedy? Because we all know that's the best food, especially for a sick baby. I mean, what better than to have their mother's breast milk, and then they use formula. But I think times have changed a lot. In the US, it's promoted a lot more, isn't it? Breast milk.
Yes, it is. The last time I traveled, I walked through an airport and there was a nice little, nursing lounge there with a breast pump in it, nice comfortable chairs for mamas. And I thought, well, here we go.
Yeah.
Here
and
we
I
go.
think a lot of it had to do with sponsorship. The formula companies would help build the hospitals. And with that, it's almost like a bribe that, okay, you have to promote formula, which is heartbreaking. But yeah,
totally.
At least we've come so far. But also with the brain, the neuroplasticity, people like you are educating us. And do you think it is a little bit more out there in the mainstream with all the science?
I definitely do. And even in the last, even in the last 20 years since when I started doing this work with Haley, and there were just all of these labels. I mean, that's one of the first things we learned, is that you'll never get anywhere if you really are obsessed or identifying with a label, right? So Haley came with all these different labels, and just attacking the labels, that's the symptom level. And if we don't get to the root of the problem, we have no hope of really changing it.
I hope you enjoyed this episode. Darci's story was so super inspirational to me. And it's amazing the amount of grit and determination that she had as a young college student to advocate for her daughter and not accept status quo. And by doing so, she really became a pioneer and is showing others the way to do the same. So if you enjoyed this episode, please tune into part 2, which will be coming up soon, and consider sharing this episode with someone who you think it might be helpful for. Thanks again for listening.